So it's October. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, ooh, it's time to celebrate Halloween, and understandably so. But for us Bond fans, there is a day in October that's very, very important to us, which is October the 5th, James Bond Day. So I consider October to be the month of James Bond. And usually, certainly here in the UK, that's where always when a new Bond film does get released, it generally seems to be released in this month. And I wanted to do something on the channel this year to really celebrate James Bond and, if you will, James Bond month, in my opinion. Now, one of the things that I absolutely love, not just in the Bond films, but in cinema in general, is title sequences. I adore title sequences, whether it being the first one I ever saw, which was Goldeneye, to the amazing ones Disney used to do. I love it when a film has a title sequence. I think the artistry and the animation is so incredible, and it's such a wonderful blend of telling you about the film without you even realizing it. It really, a good title sequence sets the tone of mood and shows you what sort of thing you're coming to. And the James Bond series, as we all know, has some absolutely amazing title sequences. So with that being, if you will, James Bond month and my love of title sequences, I've decided to start something called Bondtober. And yes, if you are wondering, I am taking inspiration from Doug Walker's Disdecember Every Christmas, but I'm now giving it, if you will, a James Bond flavour. So throughout the month of October, I'm going to be reviewing all the James Bond title sequences, all the film ones, a couple of the unofficial ones, and a couple of the video game ones, just to make it all add up to October 31st. I really want to shed light on the amazing artistry by such people as Maurice Binder and Daniel Kleinman, and all these great sequences that really had a great effect on my life. So that being said, sit down, relax, and enjoy Bondtober. So we start off Bondtober with the very first James Bond film, Dr. No. Now, this title sequence was designed by Maurice Binder. Now, he would go on to make most of the James Bond title sequences before Daniel Kleinman took over in Goldeneye. This title sequence is well known and documented that it was also influenced by Alfred Hitchcock's title sequence for Psycho. Now, Psycho has an amazing title sequences with a real pounding soundtrack to back it up. Dr. No's title sequence takes a similar vein of lots of dots, if you will, representing all the different future Bond adventures and all the different gun barrels that Bond will go on throughout his whole life. It's a really interesting visual thing to see. I also love how the dots come about. I love how we open up with the gun barrel and that leads into the title sequence with the dots suddenly brightly flashing and going into this really interesting, very, very colourful title sequence. This sequence really feels like it has come from the 60s. The use of expression in the colour is so intriguing to me, and the colours all sort of really match, they really gel, they really complement each other, and it just looks so interesting to see. The use of the Bond theme also does surprise a lot of casual viewers because they don't really think actually this was the first title sequence music, and I'm very much glad it is. The 60s version of the Bond theme is one of my absolute favourite variations of it. Heck, it is the original. But what I love about it, as well as the visuals, it really gets you pumped. It really gets you excited for what we're about to see, which a good title sequence really should do. If I was to make one comment about this title sequence, it would be I find it has a very weird ending. I think going from this pounding Bond theme to the Jamaican music, and it doesn't really transition well, is a bit of an issue. And also on that note, I just don't feel it's quite appropriate. It just feels like we've gone from one title sequence into a completely different one. That being said, the transition of going out of it into the Three Blind Mice from silhouettes into the movie was a wonderful way to escape the title sequence. So overall, I think this is actually a really good start to Bond title sequences. It's very unique, it's very much a thing of its time. I love the 60s vibe to it and the colour, the Bond theme playing. What more could you want? What a great way to start Bondtober. To me, this is one of the most quintessential James Bond titles due to its simplicity and the elegance. This title sequence, as far as I'm concerned, from Russia with Love, sets the tone for all future Bond title sequences. So unlike Dr. No's sequence, which was designed by Maurice Binder, this one was done by Robert Brown John. Now, Robert Brown John, I think, really establishes the danger and the sex appeal in this title sequence and carries that on for all the future title sequences. We owe Robert Brown John a lot of debt for that. I think the choice of using a belly dancer in this title sequence is a really great motif of Bond. It represents the allure of foreign places, the travel that we all love in James Bond. It shows the sex appeal of James Bond. It really actually is a lovely sort of summarization in a dance of the world of James Bond. It's also very good because it actually fits into the film's location of Istanbul and gives you a sense of Istanbul and that culture as well. The transition, how it goes into it from a fade in from black, is also, I think, a very simplistic thing, but also really, really nice to watch as well. Sometimes they go a bit OTT in their transitions, but this is a simple night fade into black and then straight into the title sequence. Now, this sequence is very known for the fact that the credits play over via light over this dancer, and it's wonderfully done. It's really creative. I've not really seen this properly being done anywhere else, so it's quite unique to this title sequence. But an issue of that as well would be this title sequence can sometimes feel a bit annoying when you're trying to read who actually these people are, but you can't actually properly see it because of the belly dancer moving and with her arms or the belly, and sometimes it can be actually a bit distracting. The music to this title sequence is absolutely amazing. I love the tune from Russia Love. My God, I would go say this, I think this is one of those perfect James Bond themes. It's smart, it's elegant, it's intriguing, it's going with what the titles are really trying to show as well. In Dr. No, I complained about how I felt it really went a bit weird from like the really bombastious Bond theme to the Jamaican music. This one is obviously the first title sequence that keeps the same music track all the way through, and I'm really, really glad for that. Overall, all I can say about this title sequence is bravo, another classic title sequence. Well, talk about going strength to strength to strength. Goldfinger's title sequence is nothing short of perfection in elegance and simplicity. It is one of the greatest title sequences of all time. And does it really deserve that credit? Honestly, I think it does. Having clips of the film now projected onto the Golden Girl is really cool and allows you, in the title sequence, almost gives, if you will, a second trailer to get you excited of what is to come in these clips that you don't know how they're going to fit into the movie or how they're going to play out. But it just gives you that little taste, that little thing about, ooh, what's coming up here. Heck, we even get some extended clips in this title sequence and some potential clips that weren't even from the movie, just wants to get you hyped to see the film. This sequence again was made by Robert Brown John, and he really has carried on from what he established in From Russia with Love, the coolness and why us Bond fans get excited by these title sequences still to this day. The Golden Girl in this title sequence is incredible. It's now become one of those icons of the James Bond franchise. It acts in so many ways and represents so many different things. It can be like, if you will, a corpse representing danger, as well as showing off the real interesting colour palette between black and gold. It's just quintessential Bond. It's elegance, it's danger, and it's death. And what is there now to say about Shirley Bassey's amazing song Goldfinger? It's really pointless for me to try to come up with something new. The only thing I can really talk about is just how iconic it is, and I just agree with all of that. I know people, heck, my own fiance, not maybe the biggest fan of James Bond, but even she loves the Goldfinger song. It is that iconic. It is a staple of Britishness now, that song. Now, something which I felt even for this time was probably not up to par of what it should be is the fact that the titles in this opening title sequence do jutter about a bit. It's sort of like a da-da-da-da-da-da motif. And I'm just going to say right now, the woman with the rotating number plate's mouth, come on, that's just wrong. That's just wrong. This title sequence is a massive part of the lore and iconography of James Bond, and I said, and it is for good reason. This title sequence is absolutely amazing. I love the colour palette of black and gold, the showing of the clips acting like a second trailer. This Goldfinger title sequence is one of the quintessential things about the Bond series, about British history and media. It's just a title sequence I love to watch again and again and again. Thunderball is unquestionably the origin, I think, of Maurice Binder's obsession with his title sequences and the use of water. I don't know what it is, but Maurice Binder was just obsessed with water. If I can put water in, he would do it. And also the colour blue. He used the blue a lot throughout his tenure making title sequences, and even with all that being said, I still think this is an absolutely terrific title sequence. I love how it transitions from the water jet to the DB5 into the titles. It's a really cool, fun and unique way of doing it, and I always love it in Bond films when they have a unique way of, and really cool how they transition from live action into the title sequences. Now, as this film is actually based on an underwater Bond adventure, the use of water in this title sequence is absolutely appropriate, and my god, it's amazing how they use it with the use of different colours and the bubbles and the backgrounds. For me, it's just mesmerising, all of it. This is also the first title sequence that makes use, if you will, of the silhouetted look. Obviously, in following Bond films, they use a lot of this silhouetted characters, whether being Bond or lady in the title sequence, and this is the origin of that. And what I love about the silhouettes in this title sequence is actually because the background is so colourful, it makes them stand up more and makes them so much more of a presence in this title sequence. Let's now talk about the song here, Tom Jones's Thunderball. Now, if those of you don't know, it could have been potentially Johnny Cash who did Thunderball, but I'm so happy that it was actually Tom Jones here. Though, with that being said, it's not actually one of my favourites. Songs like Goldfinger and Live and Let Die are some of my absolute favourites, and for me, this song, it just doesn't have that zest. It doesn't quite perfectly match, I feel, the film that it's representing, or the sort of background and the illusion that this title sequence is giving. Thunderball for me is a bold and colourful 180 from the last few title sequences here, and it really does take the concept of a James Bond title sequence to new levels, and I'm so grateful for that. For me, even though I'm not really much a fan of the song Thunderball, I would still highly recommend this title sequence. Well, happy James Bond Day everyone, and now we come on to the fifth title sequence, You Only Live Twice. Now, You Only Live Twice does something very different from all the other title sequences that we've had up to this point. And very much the one thing that stands out to me right from the start is actually how much slower it is. You really don't notice it until, like me, you've watched Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball pre-hand watching this title sequence to see actually how different of an effect and style they're actually trying to do here. This title sequence, unlike previous title sequences who use like a black background or colours, this uses volcanic lava eruption footage, which for me, I'm not gonna lie, it feels very hypnotic, almost in a weird way, quite stress relieving, which is weird considering that's not really what I'd associate with the world of James Bond. The theme and style of what they're going for is to show off Japan in a very stylized way, and for me, it really works. It gives the location a real sense of real exoticness and intrigue, and it also, I'm not gonna lie, it shows a real cultured feel to the world and country of Japan. I also love the fact how in this title sequence, unlike previous Bond title sequences, we actually have Japanese ladies in this title sequence. It just adds to that spirit of Japan. Heck, even the titles in this title sequence have a Japanese font style, which also adds so much to it. You really don't gain the feeling that Japan is the central focus in this title sequence, and I'm glad it sticks to that one particular style. I know it sounds weird, but I also find it weird, but at the same time, like it and don't like it, how like, sort of like the bottom end of a badminton sort of thing is coming out at you, like either in reds and blues. It looks nice, but at the same time, it just feels a bit weird. Let's talk about Nancy Sinatra's song here, and I'm going to be straight up honest, I think this song is absolutely wonderful. It's almost, if you will, the James Bond lullaby. It's very sensual and matches the style of this title sequence perfectly. I find it once again very relaxing, very stress relieving to listen to, and it just naturally just flows in your ears and just feels just so nice to hear. You know what, You Only Live Twice might not be one of the all-time great title sequences. Heck, it might not be one of my favourite title sequences of all time as well. But I have to be fair, it's a welcome change of pace and shows that with these title sequences, you don't always have to be super fast. You don't always have to be really dangerous at times. Sometimes doing something completely different while still having the feeling of James Bond can actually work. So for that reason, I do give You Only Live Twice a recommendation again to watch this title sequence. Get ready folks, strap in, get yourself ready for a new Bond title sequence, because all this title sequence is going to do is remind you about the old James Bond that we used to have. Yes, that, without a shadow of doubt, is the summarization of On Her Majesty's Secret Service title sequence. I find that this title sequence is very weird, and quite frankly, it is nowhere near on par with any of the other previous James Bond title sequences. Now, the passage of time is the main motif in this film, but that really has absolutely nothing to do with the film we're about to watch. All it does is just keep showing us old Bond adventures, trying to remember that this is still the same James Bond. Producers, Maurice Binder, give your audience a break. We know it's the same character. You don't need to keep showing us old footage of old Connery movies. We're not dumb. I'm trying to enjoy this film and this title sequence, and all I'm being reminded of is, oh yeah, that awesome bit in Doctor No, that awesome bit in Goldfinger and Thunderball. Where is the focus on Her Majesty's Secret Service? Now, something I do like about this title sequence, to be fair, is I do like the colour scheme of it. I love these sort of purpley, liquidy backdrops, and the silhouettes of the women in the title sequence is always great. Though I'm not gonna lie, every time I'm watching this title sequence, I'm just thinking, well, From Russia with Love in some ways did it better, and so did Thunderball. Now, one of the best things in this title sequence, without a shadow of a doubt, and one of my favourite things in the entire Bond legacy, is the On Her Majesty's Secret Service March. It's fantastic. Heck, I listen to this as one of my most probably listened Bond songs of all of them. I work out to this Bond music. It just gets me motivated and pumped. It's my, if you will, Rocky. This music is just so fantastic. I think this is one of John Barry's best musical scores. But overall, this title sequence for me is just a big, massive missed opportunity from start to finish. You had this sort of feeling of more patriotic Bond title sequence, but you just don't get it. You just basically kept reminding, hey, remember Sean Connery, remember Sean Connery? He was James Bond, now we've got a new James Bond. Oh yeah, we aren't really giving him much focus here. So that's just really laying down, and then on the other hand, you've got this amazing piece of music. So what can I recommend for this title sequence? Close your eyes while it's on and just listen to the music. But overall, the On Her Majesty's Secret Service title sequence for me, massive letdown. So now we come on to Diamonds Are Forever. Well, if I had to sum up this title sequence in one word, I think that word absolutely would be autopilot. On one hand, yep, I can happily say without a shadow of a doubt, this is a significant big improvement from the previous film, and the use of ladies and diamonds is something obviously going to be used in this title sequence, and it is relevant and it gets the point of that, and it is done extremely well. I'll also say that the use of selective colour is really good, which allows the diamonds to really stand out given it's mostly a black drop, and it is really good. The use of colour in this title sequence is very sparse, which can be a bit upsetting, but it's also really well used. It does allow the diamonds and the girl diamonds to really stand out, which is what is needed in this title sequence. I also want to quickly talk about the transition in this title sequence, going from Blofeld's cat. It's just so bizarre. It's like an almost demonic cat. Seriously, it doesn't blink and it's just like, whoa, 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 whoa. I do love a sense of elegance and danger in my title sequences, however, I feel this is missing in this title sequence. There's this one bit where this cat is just like waiting to move, and you can just tell like someone off screen is like going, come on kitty, move, and it's just only moving when it feels like it. It's just so obvious and it just makes me laugh every single time. Now again, we've got another fantastic Shirley Bassey classic song. Hey, Diamonds Are Forever I think is as well known as Goldfinger, and once again her voice is just fantastic. There's a reason I think people kept asking her to come back again and again and again. Diamonds Are Forever is as much a mainstream song as a Goldfinger, as in Live and Let Die. It is a really, really fantastic song. Heck, I think Diamonds Are Forever is a better song than Diamonds Are Girl's Best Friend. So overall for me, this title sequence, as I mentioned, it just feels it's on autopilot. It's just showing the bits that you expect to see. There's nothing that really stands out about the title sequence. There isn't, I feel, a real uniqueness to this title sequence. Now, a lot of people might really like this one. I personally do not, and the way I think about it is you'll watch it, you're probably going to enjoy it, but you're probably going to completely forget about it 10 minutes later while the film is still going on. Right, my friends, if you ever wanted an example of how to do an amazing and incredible tile sequence, well, look no further than here. The tile sequence of Live and Let Die is one of the biggest triumphs of Maurice Binder's whole career, and still, to this day, as far as I'm personally concerned, holds up even to some of the more modern day sequences. The theme of burning in fire is truly haunting. Some of the imagery in this tile sequence just stays with you, and it's so different from what has come before and actually what comes after. I'm trying to think of a tile sequence that's even remotely similar to this one in the Bond series, and I really can't come up with one. The themes of this film, Live and Let Die, are voodoo, and the theme of voodoo and death are here in a blaze. You have this blazing skull, the fear of the occult, everywhere you turn in this title sequence, that is there. It's quite a startling title sequence. There's a bit where we close up on a woman having almost a death stare in her face, and then she transforms into this burning skull. That is the one image out of all of it that truly still remains with me. As I mentioned, one of the film's themes was voodoo, and the other one is black exploitation. Now, there is a couple of, say, white ladies in this tile sequence, but the most part it is full to the brim of these incredible black ladies really taking the center stage, and it's really, I think, nice to see. You have this feeling of power and presence of them in the tile sequence. There is one bit that I do find a bit, well, maybe should we say by modern day standards it's just a bit weird, but there's that wavy, flighty toy kid that I used to have as a kid that's used a bit of a background, and to be honest, I feel it just makes it look a bit tacky. But my god, I think you all knew I was coming to this, but like the song in Goldfinger, I need to discuss the iconicness of the song Live and Let Die. Suffice to say, when I first heard it, it was actually with this title sequence as well. I'm actually quite pleased with that, and what an entrance this song is into my life. It's so catchy, it's so full of personality and intrigue. It's a fantastic Bond song. I think Paul McCartney's song is just right up there with the likes of Goldfinger. Overall, Live and Let Die for me is just one of those top 5 title sequences for its uniqueness, its style, its terrific song as I mentioned, and also, in my opinion, being a textbook example if you ever want to do an iconography, a really great title sequence for your own movie, this is how you do it. Oh my god, I was dreading doing the Man with the Golden Gun title sequence. Well, I'm up to it now, and I'm just going to be honest with you right from the get-go. It's just awful. I mean, this whole title sequence is just a complete mess. It misses the mark both in looks and songs, and well, let's just start with the look of it, okay? It's women and water, and that's basically looking like everything through a puddle. It's just not that nice to see. Even now, we can see a little bit of the Golden Gun in the title sequence, which is great because I stand by this as one of the most coolest looking weapons ever in film history, but outside of that, there's nothing here that I feel that really relates or connects to this movie. It just feels so generic, and I wonder what was going through Maurice Binder's mind. I'm just assuming it was water, water, more water. Is there anywhere else in this title sequence that I can add some sort of water effect? I was expecting going into this film something more like gold related, sort of like more modern day, his like version of the Goldfinger tile sequence is what I imagine Maurice would have done, but he's just gone completely the opposite way. Now, onto the song. Well, the song by Lulu, by her own admittance, it's more of a carry-on spoof song than a Bond song, and John Barry even claimed he wrote it too quickly and didn't have time to refine it, and boy, it shows. I mean, a powerful weapon, $1 million a shot. You know, it's just such a shame. It's such a campy song, and well, at least it connects in that way to the film. It's a crappy song for a not so good film. Overall, I didn't really like this tile sequence from beginning to end. It's so generic, it has no personality, it connects not really that well to the film it's talking about. In my opinion, the Man with the Golden Gun, both song and tile sequence, is just something you should miss altogether. Wow, what a return to form after the god-awful Man with the Golden Gun title sequence. The Spy Who Loved Me title sequence is so mesmerizing. I always loved it as a kid. Heck, I think even Maurice's obsession with water and blue really works again well with this film. See, when the film connects to water and it needs this sort of stuff, it works so well, but just not every time, Maurice. I love how this title sequence transitions with the hands. It's really elegant from that incredible stunt, and that, in a word, how I would describe this whole title sequence. Elegant. My god, this sequence is beautiful. The uses of the different blues and the reds and the yellow sun. Wow, you know what? I'm blue dabba dee dabba da about this title sequence. It's so nice. I always love it when we get some nice, if you will, silhouettes, but this is the first time actually in the entire series an actor who plays Bond appears in the title sequence, and once again that carries on very much throughout the rest of the series, and I'm really glad it was introduced here. The whole silhouettes of the ladies in this and all of Maud's Bond, it's so wonderful. Though I will be honest, there's one bit I've never really understood, is why are the Bond's ladies in the sequence playing on a trampoline? Seriously, look at it, it looks like they've been jumping up and down on a trampoline. The title song, as a kid, honestly wouldn't have been near the bottom of my ranking. I didn't really like it that much, but as an adult, my god, I think this is one of the greatest Bond songs of all time. It's amazing. What it is, it's a love song to Bond fans and to James Bond itself. That's the best way I can describe this song. It flows beautifully, and I think now even as fans have taken the song Nobody Does It Better as, if you will, a bit of a national anthem of us singing about James Bond. So in conclusion, you know, how to wrap up this review. When it comes to title sequences, I think I'll just leave it with this. Nobody does it better. Oh my lord, what happened with this title sequence? This is James Bond in space. Let me say that again. James Bond in space. The imagination boggles with ideas of what they could do for the title sequence here for Moonraker. And all we get is a quick shot of the moon and the earth. That is it, basically right near the beginning of the title sequence. What a miss. With Moonraker, you're probably expecting something more space-oriented. Stars, the ship, girls and stars, but it's not really here. It's just a big blue mess. For me, this again is as generic as a title sequence you could get. There's no little teasers potentially of what's to come, no other sort of forms of imagery, nothing that really sort of connects to the film. This comes after, I think, one of the best title sequences in the Bond series. And what? This could have been one of the greatest title sequences for any James Bond film. And that's what makes it most annoying, is that all that potential of what it could have been, but there's nothing really special about this one. Now, fair is fair, I do love the cloudy effect backdrops. I mean, I'm digging to find something here, people, but it does really look nice. One upside that we definitely still do have with this title sequence is another great Shirley Bassey song. If I'm absolutely being fair, I still prefer Goldfinger, Diamonds and Forever this one, but my god, sorry, when she gives it her all, she gives it her all. And even the weakest of the Bassey song trilogy is still not forgettable. This is an incredible song and it still leaves a lasting impact. Heck, I think the song is more out of this world than the title sequence. Alright, just calm your booze on that bad pun, but seriously, think about it. That really sums up my feelings about the Moonraker title sequence. It's bland, it's just boring, it doesn't use its source material to the fullest, and after 5 minutes you'll completely forget about it, like I've already done doing this review. So what makes the For Us Only title sequence unique across the entire Bond franchise and including spin-offs? It's the only title sequence that has the actual singer, Sheena Easton, appear in the sequence, which weirdly as a kid I wasn't the biggest fan of. When I think of Bond title sequences, I love the abstractness and I love the moods and themes that they create, and as a kid it's just I felt this was taking away from that. But obviously I've grown up since then, and now I look at this title sequence in a completely different matter, and I think it's really, really beautiful. This to me is another example of Maurice Binder's titles using the colour blue and water, but it does connect and does work so well with For Us Only, as a lot of the film and its themes is about underwater exploration. It does work here. Similar to the You Only Live Twice title sequence, I find this title sequence quite hypnotic, very calming and very relaxing, which again, I have to stress here, I find very weird that that is not what I really connect with the world of James Bond, but I'm so glad it does do these different paces every now and then and gives us something unique and different. I also love how we get a slightly new spin on silhouette, which again, I like having them, but it was nice to see something done different with them, which I really found cool. And I also like to add, I love the underwater pink. It also gives a real pleasant contrast to the rest of the title sequence. Now, something that does sort of bug me when it comes to this title sequence is I feel it at times, while trying to be slow, it takes its time too much. I feel we somehow linger on certain sections where we should be moving on to the next thing, but this title chooses to be a bit slower, but you can do that, like You Only Live Twice, without lingering on things for too long, and this is an issue I do have with For Your Eyes Only. Now, the song for me again, I think is an absolute gem in the James Bond franchise. It perfectly blends with the title sequence, it's a wonderful song, and it just oozes such Bondians feelings of strength and beauty. As a kid, again, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, but like I said earlier on in this little pocket review, I've grown to really love For Your Eyes Only's title sequence. If I had to sum up Octopussy in one quick sentence, well, I believe the title song says it all, an all-time high. I love this title song because it feels weirdly traditional, but at the same time quite fresh. Right off the bat, we've got to talk about the neon and laser used in this title sequence. It's so brilliant. I love how at the beginning we get a laser of Bond, then 007, then into an octopus, obviously for Octopussy, and all the other uses in the sequence. It's something unique and new, bringing into the Bond title sequence mythos, which for me is always great to see when someone does that, though keeping with the style, traditions, themes, and overall tone and feel of what a James Bond title sequence should be. At this point, I always feel like in the timeline, Maurice Binder gets a bit of a bad rep when people believe that these title sequences like For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, and A View to a Kill are basically interchangeable. It's just doing the exact same thing over and over again. But the truth of the matter is, he isn't. He carries on updating and expanding and trying out new things in these title sequences, and Octopussy is a prime example of that. I really want to talk about here also about the backgrounds. Again, I love the backgrounds in these title sequences. The dark blue and black with the right lighting, it's just beautiful. What really steals us though is I can only describe as a whirlpool of smoke colour. I could go on and on about how beautiful this looks, but I love it, and the silhouettes in front of it just make it such a wonderful abstract thing to see, and the silhouettes even stand out even more. And do you know what's just great? It's just how well they complement each other. The complementariness between what's going on in the foreground and the background in this title sequence is amazing. I also got to shout out the special effects in this title sequence. The Octopussy arms and the laser gun and the laser smokes. It's things like this that make this title sequence unique. As I mentioned, you probably guessed I love the song All Time High. Not one of my top 10 if I'm frankly honest, but beautiful words in tune and really connected to the film and the title sequence. The synergy of music and images here works so well. I feel this title sequence is probably one of the most forgotten greats in all of Maurice Binder's work, and all I have to say to that is do so at your peril. This is definitely one of Maurice Binder's absolute best, and I'll say it again, it goes on an all-time high. Well, I'm going to say something here probably that's going to make you hit the dislike button very quickly, but I'm going to say it now and I'm going to stand by it, and that is, without the amazing song by Duran Duran with this title sequence, would we really be considering this one of the best title sequences, where honestly, visually, I think it's quite meh. Now, looking at the visuals for this title sequence, and we'll just leave the song for a moment, it really starts off with some really good ideas, but it does have this theme of hot and cold, and the use of fluorescent colour is interesting, and however, I'm glad to see the lasers again, and very much glad to see not really much water overall. I just feel this title sequence is far too dark, and it's not really a set piece compared to previous entries in the franchises. Each old Bond film up to this point had a unique vision, had a unique look to to their title sequences, even the worst ones. And for me, A View to a Kill, it's just very much too little. Now, there are two unique shots in this title sequence which I will give again credit for, which is the woman coming from the fire and the skier then suddenly turned frozen. I do give this title sequence credit to that. But now, going away from just the visuals just for the moment, let's talk about what I think everyone really loves the most about this title sequence, which is Duran Duran's A View to a Kill. Again, what else can be said about this song? It is one of my absolute all-time favourite songs of all time. Not just Bond songs, favourite songs of all time. My god, it's amazing, and for me, it's the reason I feel why people truly love this title sequence as much as they do, and what makes it so memorable and the true highlight of it. To prove my point, I suggest you take the A View to a Kill title sequence and maybe put, let's just say, Octopussy song all over and see how different it is. And do you feel differently after seeing that to what A View to a Kill is now? So, A View to a Kill for me is a tale of two halves. The song, magnificent, I love it, it's one of the greatest songs of all time. But for me, the visuals are just lacking. I feel there's not that really big pop moment, not so many memorable moments in this title sequence compared to its predecessors. So I would suggest when this is on, closing your eyes and just listening to that song in all its glory. This film was a big new direction for the franchise, and I'm happy to say, like the film The Living Daylights, the title sequence is also really a bold new direction for Bond title sequences, and I love it because of that. In comparison to the Roger Moore title sequences, there is a massive colour and style change here which works so well. This film is a lot darker than the previous films, and the title sequence truly does reflect that direction where the Bond series is heading. This time, you basically have a black backdrop, and one of the advantages of doing that is if you do choose to do that, everything you put on front of it should really stand out with a big bang, and I'm happy to say it really does in this title sequence. I feel instead of having a traditional blue background like a lot of the Roger Moore Bond films did, having the black background really gives this title sequence a new feel. I also love how, yes, we do get ladies and all the traditional great stuff and imagery associated with a Bond title sequence, and yet there's a sneaky little bit still of water in there for Maurice, you good old Maurice trying to add in it there, but it's not so obvious and in your face this time, and it's used so much better. Now, I've got to here talk about the song. Now, I know John Barry and Ahar didn't get on so well, but my god, this is again one of those Bond songs I have on constant repeat. I love the song The Living Daylights. It's such a great Bond song. It's on my regular playlist and also one of those songs I listen to while I work out. Now, if I had to pick one criticism of this title sequence, it would be like in the last couple of title sequences, Maurice Binder did try and experiment and introduce new and different things into the title sequences. This one, it is very much nothing sort of particularly new. It's the stuff that we've just seen in the last couple of films done in a different way, but there's nothing new, nothing like new piece of technology in this one, which is a bit of a letdown. But overall, everything works for me so well in this title sequence. It's a new tonal direction and change in the title sequence that does reflect the movie as well. It gives us something new without anything that new in it, which can be a bit of a letdown. This, I have to say, has some great imagery though in it. It's a great song, it perfectly blends together. This is definitely top tier Bond title sequence. WTF. Seriously? After that brilliant Living Daylights title sequence, you give us this? You know what, heads up, I'm going to apologise to all previous title sequences that I've given a hard time to, because this, without a shadow of a doubt, is Maurice Binder's worst title sequence, and it's so annoying because this ends up being his last one as well. I mean, this is meant to be the most darkest, the most brutal Bond film to date, and none of that tone and direction is shown here. Instead, we get camera product placement at the beginning and end of this title sequence, a bit of casino where Bond is for a little part of the movie, but honestly, there's nothing in this title sequence that is extremely memorable at all. Another thing that really annoys me about this sequence is how, apart from one little bit, the utter lack of colour. The last title sequence used the black backdrop, but it had great imagery and colour on top of that. Here, it's just non-existent. It's really insulting to what has come before it in the title sequence pantheon. I just feel like the creativity and the imagination of the Bond title sequence here is just completely gone. Let's talk about Gladys Knight's song here. Okay, let's be fair to it. It's a very good song, it's very powerful, and it feels like a Bond song. No doubt about that. So what is wrong with it? This should have been a sort of Duran Duran, Paul McCartney Live and Let Die song here. Instead we get this ballad and it's just not gelling with the movie. This is the time you bring in like the You Know My Name or the Duran Duran, not the sort of Skyfall Goldfinger-esque title song here. So for me, I feel this is definitely the worst title sequence Maurice Binder has done. The sequence lacks imagination and creativity, and the song, although very good, is completely the wrong style, and it's such a bad one for Maurice to go out on. Let me just finish up here by also saying, looking at Maurice Binder's work, his contribution to the Bond franchise is second to none. He really crafted a lot of the iconography and the imagination when it comes to what we think about when it comes to James Bond, and he was a pure genius, and his work basically showed. Yes, there were good days in the office, yes, there were bad days. Maurice Binder, without a shadow of a doubt, was so important to the franchise, and we Bond fans owe him a lot of debt. All I can say is, Maurice, thank you so much for your amazing work. All it takes now is for Daniel Kleinman to take over, and boy, doesn't he. Okay, let's be upfront and open about this. This sequence, Goldeneye's title sequence, was the first ever James Bond title sequence I ever saw, and because of that, it is the one I compare all the previous ones to and all the ones that came afterwards. But my god, still to this day, is still definitely one of the greatest title sequences, not only of the Bond series, but I think of all time. This time it's Daniel Kleinman who did the music video for License to Kill, taking over the title sequence. He takes the tropes and the greatness of the old sequences and really modernizes it, and this sequence stands up today. I think literally you could show the sequence and you could believe that with the modern day technology it was just made yesterday. It still stands up. I love the motif of this one, especially the real show of how the world has changed in between the last film and this film. You get the iconography in this sequence about how the world is now, and a bit of connection to Goldeneye. The guns floating up, the smoky backgrounds, it's so beautiful. It's really well chosen motifs and icons that connect to the film, not in like a very normal, like simplistic way, but a very much a theme style. I want to talk here about Daniel Kleinman. As I mentioned, he did the music video for Gladys Knight's A License to Kill, which is infinitely better than the actual sequence, and he brings that skill of what he learned there, and it really shows. The song is definitely one of my favourite Tina Turner songs. It's an incredible song, and for me, it really does have that sense of danger, excitement, intrigue. I remember listening to this thinking, is Goldeneye a real person? He sounds so cool. It's definitely, for me, one of the best songs in the series, and perfectly feels traditional, but at the same time new at the same time. So that's how I could really potentially describe this sequence to you all. It feels old and new at the same time. It's the update which the series needs, and I feel this title sequence is pure art, and definitely still one of my all-time favourites. How, after Goldeneye, which was already a brilliant title sequence, can you top that? Well, here it is already in the next film. Tomorrow Never Dies' title sequence is absolutely wonderful. They use the theme about media and our consumption of media, how it manipulates us, and it's all right here in the title sequence, done in this most amazing, artistic, and really stylized Bondian way. You really get this feeling that you're entering a digital world, and I just found it absolutely glorious. I've always loved the X-ray visuals in this title sequence. I even remember as a kid just thinking that was so interesting, and again it fits to the overall theme of the movie, and it's a great example of how the ladies are made out of circuits, but when you look at them on the screen they look like these really amazing ladies, but underneath it they're not real. That still is so resonant to this day. As I mentioned just a moment ago, technology is the main focus here, and this sequence It really shows how we perceive it, how it looks, what's really going on behind. This really fits well with Daniel Kleinman's style of really pushing the title sequences onto new levels and new extremes. It's just wonderful to see. I also have to say, within this title sequence is some of my favourite, if you will, Bondian images. You've got the bullets, you've got the amber backgrounds. It's just really great. One of my favourite bits is right at the end, is with the diamonds circulating like satellites in the sky. It is really wonderful. Now, the song famously wasn't the original song, but it was the actual song Surrender that plays at the end of the film. Now, I'm going to say this, controversial maybe, but I'm going to stand by it. The Surrender song is great, don't get me wrong, but I definitely think it was the right move to get a different song. For me, Sheryl Crow's song of To I Know Dies suits the sequence much more. I've seen variations of this title sequence with the Surrender song. It doesn't quite work with the pacing and tone. I feel this was definitely the better idea to do. So overall, as you can guess, I feel this is definitely a better title sequence than Goldeneye. But overall, I feel it is an A-star textbook title sequence for people learning about title sequences, learning about graphic design, and looking about the amazingness that you can do with it. The first way I would describe the World Star Enough title sequence is a psychedelic trip. It's like a perfect blend of old school traditional Maurice Binder style title sequences, but that newish Daniel Kleinman influence put all over it, and it just truly shows, in my opinion, the greatness of both eras. There is a lot of traditional motifs and colours and things that Maurice Binder did with his title sequences, but it's given a new lease of life, I feel, under Daniel Kleinman, and a unique twist, allowing the new advances of technology to really show the things that maybe Maurice Binder couldn't have done in a new and interesting way. For example, the silhouettes of girls normally you'd get in Maurice Binder sequence, now they're 3D ladies made out of these oiled kaleidoscope images. It's just, that's a perfect example of what I'm trying to say about why this title sequence is so good. Now, the main plot thread of this film is oil and the control of oil, and that provides a backdrop of landscapes that I can only describe as the most mesmerizing effect I've ever seen. When it comes to like just a visual look, if you had to sum up all title sequences, this one, The World's Not Enough, has without a doubt the best one. Now, one thing, if I'm honest about the sequence which I feel is not quite working is, uncompared to others that we've had, I feel this one doesn't really build up to a big climax of sorts. It does have a little bit of a build up, however I feel it just doesn't have a really big crescendo or real big moment to end the sequence on, which is a bit annoying because you've had so much of this amazing stuff and you're thinking it is going to build up something, and it just never doesn't. Now, the song by Garbage, straight up one of my favourites in the entire franchise. Many of you probably disagree with that, maybe you're thinking it's just, alright. For me, it's very pleasant to listen to. I feel it has real great Bondian vibes and class, and I listen to this one a lot. Heck, I remember growing up listening to this one more than probably quite a few others. I just really like this song. I just can't explain it more than that. Once again, Daniel Kleinman goes for this stunning piece of art here, and we get to reap rewards. I feel the song fits perfectly. I love the use of oil in the kaleidoscope effects. It really gives something unique and visual, and still to this day, straight up, one of the best title sequences in the Bond series. A recommendation definitely for me to watch, and I feel one of the most colourful, greatest sequences of all time. I hate the Die Another Day title sequence. In comparison to the last three, which were like, in my opinion, some of the greatest film title sequences of all time, not just in Bond, film title sequences of all time, this one completely misses the mark. You can't deny this sequence doesn't fit the tone and style of Bond films, but with that being said, I will give it this. It does represent the tone and style of what this film is. Now, this title sequence plays over a torture sequence of Bond, so it's not even really a full title sequence. We only get little tidbits, little bits here and there over footage of the film that we're about to watch. And for me, the motifs that we've got in here of fire and ice, which, agreed, connects to the torture sequence that we're watching on screen right now, but doesn't really connect to anything else in the film. Now, I really want to get back to the fact I just said that this is not a real full tile sequence, which is fair to say, tile sequences have sort of gone into their own world with the Bond universe, and it's what I come to expect. But here, it's just some sort of stuff slightly faded over the film that's still going on. And at the end of the day, it just doesn't look good. There are like little moments that potentially look good in the sequence, like basically the bit where you're looking for diamonds and really any bit that where Bond is not tortured. But overall, it's very vast. There isn't really much going on here. The whole sequence lacks style and elegance. Okay, now, you probably clicked this video, if I'm honest, not for me to rant on about the visuals here, but to go on that Madonna song. Oh my god, that Madonna song is so bad. I mean, literally, I remember just listening the first time thinking, ow, my ears, my ears. When will this finish? When will this be over? Oh my god. There are lines in this song with like Sigmund Freud it. Analyze this. What? What are you going on about, Madonna? This song is terrible. It's cheesy. It's sort of this weird techno. Again, yes, that does connect to the film, but it's just so awful to listen to. It's ear-achingly bad, this song. So yes, the Die Another Day tile sequence for me doesn't reflect well the Bondian style, but it does reflect the movie that we are watching. It's not a very good tile sequence. In fact, I'll go and say it looks terrible. And the song, I'm not gonna get into that song here. All I have to say is I don't want to watch it. Sigmund Freud can watch it. He can analyze it. Not me anymore. You know what, history I find in these tile sequences repeat themselves. You have this very, very bad one, and then suddenly, next one along comes one of the greatest of all time, and there's no exception here with Casino Royale's tile sequence. Wow, just take my expectations for Casino Royale's tile sequence, which you probably had this idea of motive of playing cards and everything, and it truly gives you something next level Daniel Kleinman does here without a shadow of a doubt. I also love how in this sequence, like Dr. No, this film being a reboot of the franchise, we start off with a gun barrel again into the titles. I like the symmetry of that, and then into this world of playing cards. This tile sequence has a uniqueness about it where all the tropes we talk about, you know, the Bond girls and the silhouettes, all those things, it's basically all gone. There's none of that in this sequence. It's all about Bond, and that's where the sequence also puts its emphasis on, and it's just great that it does it because it reflects the film we're about to watch. I also just have to talk about the visuals here and the backdrops and the vines and the spades and the clubs going around. It's utterly amazing. I love the unique visual choices in this tile sequence. Like, you know, when someone dies, it shatters into clubs or spades. You know, the spades that represent bullets and the crosshairs, the turn on the roulette wheels. It's just all absolutely fantastic. I also love this particular moment how we get a card coming up to us and then two gunshots happen, making the 007 number. Then it moves into 007 status confirmed. It's something I think that's just a really nice moment, a little like bonus cherry on the top with this tile sequence. But let's really talk about Chris Cornell's You Know My Name. You know, when I heard this song the first time, I really thought to myself, this wasn't very much of a Bond song. But wow, was I wrong. I think this song is absolutely amazing. It's a rock song about Bond, and it works so well and ties into the theme of what this film is about. I love the lyrics, and it's just an amazing song. I love the lyrics such as, if you take life, do you know what you gain? Or arm yourself because no one else here will save you. I think definitely this is one of the best songs in the Bond series as far as I'm concerned. So overall for me, after the massive disappointment of Die Another Day, just wow, a welcome refresh again to the tile sequences, which removes the iconography, yet still managed to be one of the most Bondian tile sequences of them all. I have to say, when I first saw this tile sequence, I loved it. When I got this film on DVD, I used to rewatch this sequence again and again and again for a long time, and I still do this day. A reboot completely to Bond tile sequences, and a great one for the whole franchise. Okay, if someone tells you you can make a Bond tile sequence, just include these elements and you're there, and I'll always point them to the Quantum of Solace tile sequence, because truly, hands down, I feel without a shadow of doubt, this is definitely one of the worst tile sequences in the whole franchise, and I put that down to one person, Mark Foster. This sequence was made by the brilliant company, and they are brilliant, called MK12, and don't get me wrong, they've made some great tile sequences in the past, most notably Catch Me If You Can. but you just can't give anyone this sequence to do. It has to have a certain style and elegance, which MK12, they just completely missed the mark with this sequence as far as I'm concerned. Starting off with this, the title sequence must represent the theme and style and tone of where the film's going, and all this sequence really gives you first of all is, well, it's got sand. Okay, backdrop wise, that's it. It doesn't really lack elegance and sophistication in here. And again, the on-screen titles in the title sequence don't just scream James Bond, it's just someone trying to do something different. It lacks that unique Bondness. What this sequence really actually looks like and feels like to me is someone trying to imitate the Bond title sequences, and that's all it feels like to me, and it's just not working. I also find that the geography of this sequence is all a mess. It literally moves you from one place to the other, going round and round. It feels like a bit you're on a roller coaster. It lacks of narrative flow and a pattern to go into. And it literally is like, oh, we'd finished over here, now let's go over here, now we'll go over here, and then we'll do a whirly all around here. It doesn't work for me. The other thing I really want to stress about this sequence is it lacks that striking visual element. I think every sequence, good or bad, has that sort of uniqueness to it, and for me this one just feels again very, very generic. Okay, a bit like when I ranted about Die Another Day, it's time now to rant about Another Way to Die, and right off the bat I'm going to say this right now, this to me is the worst Bond song of all time. Now the thing is about Die Another Day, it's so bad you can sort of enjoy it for the wrong reasons. This one, I just feel it's not a Bond song. I feel it's like one of those, like someone said, well, okay, we need something modern, so let's just put something very modern in. So you get Alicia White and Jack Keys all in here, and doing little things. We'll mention like Queen Country a little bit like that. We'll mention the word quantum in there. There's nothing really about this song that feels like this is a Bond song. So overall, for Quantum of Solace's title sequence, it's definitely the worst. Definitely I think it has the worst song, and I feel the visuals just don't give the elegance and the style of Bond that these title sequences should have for me. It's very much the odd kid out here in the whole collection, and it just shows to me once and for all, not just anyone can make a Bond title sequence. So what was the title sequence to commemorate Bond 50th? It was, of course, Skyfall, and Fangirl Kleiman is back here instead of England 12, as in my opinion, he gives us one of the most unique Bond titles ever, while also being incredibly traditional at the same time. This is a title sequence, to be fair to me, that has grown over time. Initially I didn't really think much of it, it was nice, but it was nothing that special. But I absolutely loved Adele's song, which we will talk about later in this little pocket review. But actually, upon really rewatching and really analysing the sequence, there's some really, really interesting stuff here. The theme of this sequence is going through, if you will, Bond's mind while potentially dying. As you know, he just got shot before this title sequence, and it then goes into the sequence. So we're seeing this through his experience, through his eyes, going down into like weird tunnels all the way through to the end. The iconography of this title sequence is just everywhere when it comes to things that will be foreshadowing in the film. I really want to bring up here as well that thing I always used to say when we spin it, how I always felt he was obsessed with water and showing through water, and can he add water in anywhere in his title sequences. This one, it is, if you will, the best version of that ever, and he didn't even do it. Obviously Bond falling in the water, it gives you that sort of, if you will, watery landscape which looks terrific, and so much of the sequence has that feeling of being underwater, if you will, but it's unlike what Maurice Binder did, and maybe it's just because of the modern day technology. It really makes something very interesting and visually appeasing landscapes to see in this sequence. As I mentioned, the iconography of the sequence, well, shooting targets of Bond, which looks brilliant, Skyfall Manor, the Blood Skulls, the Rorschach test bit, and so much more. There are so many memorable moments in the sequence, and I'm just going to put it out right now. We all know about that thick blood rain that can be misconstrued as something else. You read into that, what do you want to read into that? We go also for one of the worst title songs, in my opinion, to definitely, I think, one of the greatest all time. Nearly, I think everyone loves this song, Adele's Skyfall. It just, the best way I can describe it is incredible. It is one of the best. It's a Bond ballad for all the ages. I love the Skyfall song. It's powerful, it's dangerous, it's meaningful, great pathos. It's again one I have on constant repeat. So for me, Skyfall's title sequence has become one of the greatest title sequences of all time. Its ingenious style, impressive song which again I'm going to say is earth-shattering, is just incredible. It's also such a great tribute to the Bond title sequence of the past, honouring the 50 years of that. All I can say is A star, enough said. Wow. Now, I bet you probably clicked on this video thinking, right, Henry's going to hate this one and we were going to have a really good rant about everything in this title sequence. And well, to be honest, you're half right. Your thinking is logical, but truly, when I think about this title sequence, I think visually it's absolutely stunning. I really love it. But the song is where I have a real issue. Let's start with these visuals here. Now, obviously the main colour palette is black and gold. It is one of my favourite colour blends with fire. It's beautiful, it's something unique and something different, and it makes the sequence for me stand out and really work, as well as other abstract artistry that we have going on in the title sequence. We knew Spectre being the name of the film, we're probably going to get some sort of octopus in this title sequence, but again, it's used so cleverly well. It feels really slimy, it feels really menacing, it really has a presence of power in this title sequence. It's very villainous, and it works for me so well, and it's not overused, it's just used just in the right amount as far as I'm concerned. I also want to bring up how, again, Daniel Kleinman takes very traditional elements that has been done in the past, such as, silhouettes and all the other things and how you would think about Bond. It's all here, but he's again made it feel very different and very new. Heck, you remember in the old films you used to get like sort of movie clips playing over the title sequence, such as most famously Goldfinger. Well, we get a variation of that here, where it's more animated recreations of certain key little moments, like a living painting come to life. It's done really well, and it gives you that sense of like coolness of what's this related to, what's going to come up here. It really is, I think, a wonderful way of re-energizing and giving it a new fresher paint, that motif. Now, let's talk about Writing of the War by Sam Smith. Now, I know there are people who love this song, I know there's some who hate this song, some who don't mind it. Me, I just really don't like it. Look, Sam Smith, he's obviously an incredibly talented person, and he has oodles of fans, and full credit to him, he's made an incredible career for himself. But for me, his voice just grates on me. I find it so annoying to listen to. At times, I swear it's like he's got his balls in a vice trying to sing this song. It's just so painful to listen to. It just doesn't work for me at all. So overall, this sequence for me is a tale of two parts, if you will. Visually stunning and really enjoy watching. However, every section of it is ruined by having that Sam Smith song play over it. You know what, I'd recommend just watching this title sequence on silent. Forget Sam Smith's song, just enjoy the visuals and enjoy it that way. So we come to the latest title sequence now, No Time to Die. Weirdly, based on the song and the music video, I thought No Time to Die's title sequence would be quite a real somber, black and white style title sequence. So when I finally saw the sequence and saw it was one of the most brightest and most colourful ones, I got a massive surprise. And all I can say was, it was a real joyful surprise. This sequence feels to me like the 60s style title sequences brought into 2022, and I love how colourful and creative it is with the visuals in this title sequence and so much great iconography that really makes it stand out, such as the vines and veins and the statues in it, the helixes made out of the gun and bullets. I love how it harkens back to Dr. No at the opening with the dots opening it and the choices of the blues and oranges and reds. This is art. This is the exact reason why I say that title sequences are art. I really feel that this title sequence, actually, when you look at it, really gives you that sense of gravitas. It makes you really feel like how long Bond has been going on for and all the greatness that it has given. Now, again, something I don't like about this title sequence is trip down memory lane here, the bit where you showed all the previous faces with the bullets this time. It looks great, but again, it annoys me so much. I just feel like this doesn't belong in a Bond title sequence. Now, the song, I originally had reservations when I heard Billie Eilish was going to do the song. How wrong was I? I love the song No Time to Die. I love how it's harrowing, it's powerful, quite slow, but it builds up to this big, massive finale, and I just love to hear it. I also love the lyrics of this song. It's so mysterious and just really sombering to feel about. Weird enough, it's one of those things where two things are completely different, but they actually go together, and that's really how I describe No Time to Die's title sequence and song. It wasn't what I was expecting, but it surpassed it on every level. I know people who normally pass the titles when they're watching these films, but I know people who have just stayed and watched this one for the song and the visuals here. It's beautiful. It's got great colourful imagery, iconography. It was a great time if you love title sequences. And all I can say at this point is good luck to Bond 26 title sequence, because this is definitely going to be one tough one to follow. So, we get on to the first of the unofficial James Bond title sequences, Casino Royale 67. And in a weird way, it's a very basic title sequence, but that being said, I really actually do quite enjoy this one. Weirdly, it does still have quite a bit of a James Bond style iconography, just obviously done in a pastiche way. You have girls and clips from the movie in this title sequence, which again comes from the original series, and also its main motif is this unique first letter art, which is great and it looks really great. My big issue with this title sequence though is, as a spoof title sequence, there isn't that many jokes in it. There's this one great one when Peter Sellers' title comes up and they just have this very funny thing about when he sees a hot girl. It's just, for me, just done very lazily. It's also quite a bit of a mess, but again, that does actually quite represent the movie very well. I always thought this title sequence would really show off the razzle-dazzle of its big names, but it doesn't really do that with much great panache-ness. It just really rushes through them. Now, even though I said the main motif, and I do like the artistry of these first letters in these names is really nice, it does also have a bit of annoyance when you're trying to read some of these people who they are, and your eyes are either not quite adjusting to it, or they're getting distracted by this when you're trying to read the people who you're going to see. I don't think that's actually very fair to the many thousands of people who worked on this film. Now, the best thing about this title sequence for me is actually the music they've got here. Honestly, it just makes me happy. It makes me cheery. It's fun, it's jolly, it's enjoyable, it's hummable, which is also really great, and it does work with what the film is. It is just a great bit of fun. So, you know what, this title sequence, it's not going to win any awards by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not like one of the worst ones compared to what we actually got in the official Bond series. There's nothing here that really stands out. I think my big issue with it though is I wish as a Bond spoof title it just did a bit more jokes. Something akin more to what Weird Al did with Spy Hard later on in life. But again, it's enjoyable, it's fun, but I'll also say it's quickly forgettable. Oh why, oh why, oh why. Oh, you know what? While planning out Bondtober, if there was one I was absolutely dreading to do, I mean properly absolutely dreading, it was the title sequence for Never Say Never Again. I just think this is awful. I mean really awful. I mean, where to start? I think the first thing to start for me is the fact that you've got this action sequence that also is meant to reintroduce Sean Connery into the character of James Bond, and it's meant to be this really sort of cool stealth action scene with him taking out goons, infiltrating, zip wiring and all that, and the intention was to have some really sort of dramatic cool stealth action music to go along with this to introduce the character of Sean Connery as James Bond back to the world. But instead, Kevin McClory decided, now what we're going to do is we're going to slap titles on this sequence and also put our title song here to introduce the movie. That was apparently not what the director Ivan Kershaw wanted, and I can definitely see why, because they just don't gel. You've got this song, which we'll get to by the way in a minute, don't you worry, but over there you've meant to have this really cool action scene to sort of kick off the movie, and it's just not firing, and it's just conflicting, and it's making you want to feel one way when you really should be feeling another. I think that's another thing I really hate about this title sequence, is effectively this is the introduction into the movie and the introduction of Sean Connery back to the role of James Bond, and it makes him look like a wimp. It really does. It makes him look not so fit, not so engaging. You have to do something basically a bit slower. That's the best way I can describe it. Let's talk here for a little moment about the song Never Say Never Again. God, this is bad. This is just so bad. I mean, this is a song you just literally just screaming, get it over with, get it over with. You just wish it was over. And what's with some of the lyrics, you know, I'll get you, I'll bleed you, I'll literally just what? It's just such a bad song. Look, just overall, this whole title sequence is atrocious. You've got a footage that just doesn't add up to the song. You've got a song that doesn't really add up to the footage. It's all over the place. Oh, just thank God in the actual series we got these amazing title sequences in comparison to this. So to kick off now part of our Bondtober, the video game original title sequences, we start off with the game Nightfire. For me, while some might not agree because of previous Bond games, but for me this was the first Bond game with its own legitimate title sequence and song, and also I consider the first Bond game to have its own title sequence, so I'm choosing to start off here. I love the visuals of this sequence, and it does represent the game beautifully. Characters and space and the Nightfire rockets and Phoenix, it's all here and it's done really artistically. The ladies with the hair of fire is also a wonderful touch. These designers, I feel, really do get the elegance and exactly what a Bond title sequence should be, even in game form. As for the song, honestly, nah. It's not bad, but it's not good. It's okay. I don't think it's like one of the worst songs ever in the Bond franchise, but I really don't see myself humming after listening to it or thinking about it as one of the all-time or even it's okay. It's there and it's serviceable and it does really feel like a Bond song. So I'd give this title sequence actually a good recommendation, certainly for the visuals. The song is a bit ear, but you know, I'm in the minority of that. I think Nightfire is a great start to the Bond video game title sequences here, and this title sequence, certainly from all my memories of playing Nightfire, does have a special place in my heart. The title sequence of the video game Everything or Nothing is, well, I would say potentially film level quality. Right from the get-go, I just want you to know I love this title sequence. I love the colour palette of the silver and the white and the bits of red in there. It's absolutely beautiful. And on top of that, you've just got some really standout, amazing iconography in this sequence. One thing I noticed about Nightfire's title sequence compared to this title sequence is how different they really are in the stone of direction and look. It really is quite amazing how they were actually made by the same people and how they really do get what a Bond title sequence should be, even in a small form. The use of tanks in this title sequence for me is a brilliant choice. It really is, certainly, when I think about Everything or Nothing's title sequence, I think of those platinum tanks. It's a great visual thing to see, and I love it how it all switches between each other with the use of the red flags. Now, if I was to give one criticism, and it's just too short. I could have easily seen this gone for another 90 seconds and have a full title sequence here, but I understand it is a video game title sequence, it is shorter, but I just wish it was longer. The song for me is a much better improvement over Nightfire, and one I actually add to my Bond playlist. Might not be like the best singer, but she's still very good, and really, I think this for me is a better song than Die Another Day. I love the visuals of this sequence. I really love how it really gives you that feel of a cinematic James Bond experience. Finally, I think in the games, this was the first time where we had a title sequence that not only matched the films, but in some of the cases also surpassed them. The Bloodstone title sequence, while definitely absolutely 100% visually stunning, to me just have never really felt actually like a Bond title sequence. For me, it feels a lot like Quantum of Solace's title sequence. The ingredients are there, but it's just lacking that certain thing that makes these wonderful Bond title sequences what they are. The use of diamonds is really great, however, it just makes me feel like I'm watching a title sequence to a number of different other games or movies. For me, I always feel a title sequence really does need to flow. There needs to be a bit of a narrative flow. And this one just jumps there. It's absolutely everywhere. There is no natural progression with it. And then you have that bit with those armed guards appearing over the diamonds. There's just no synergy to it. Now, there is one bit in this title sequence that just really actually bugs me, where they're basically trying to imitate the Casino Royale title sequence. When someone gets killed, in that sequence they turn to either spades or clubs. Here, it's diamonds, and I'm just watching this thinking, this has already been done. This is, you know, normally when they redo something like this, they try to add a different spin on it. Here it's just like, yeah, we're intentionally copying that. Now, the song, well, honestly, again, I just think it just sounds so generic. This isn't really a Bond song or really a Bond game song. For me, there isn't anything really strikingly brilliant or memorable about it. I really honestly can't even remember it, even when I'm making this review. So overall, this sequence to me as a Bond video game title sequence is okay, but as a Bond title sequence, it's bad, it's forgettable, and for me, that's just one of the worst things I could say about it. So, coming to the end of Bondtober this year, we look at our last title sequence, 007 Legends, and wow, this title sequence looks ugly. I mean ugly. Like it's a regurgitated James Bond title sequence. It's such a mess that it literally has no structure, no style. I want to apologise to any previous title sequence I complained about earlier, because compared to this one, you all look BAFTA worthy. So it tries to show you things like you might associate with the game and many things in the Bond franchise, like volcano, snow peaks, water, space, but then it just goes from one thing to the other. Literally, it just tries to show you volcano ladies, then quickly moves on to like Sanchez. Where's the connection between Volcano, which was You Only Live Twice, and Sanchez from License to Kill? There is no correlation. Near the end, it's like a shot, then zoom out, then further, then it just tries to go somewhere else. It's all over the place, and honestly, I'm just praying for this title sequence to finally end. And when it just stops, it just stops. It literally, like, there's no like gradual great crescendo or ending. It just literally just stops. Okay, now the song originally starts as a bit of a remix of Goldfinger, and then it just starts to do this sort of awful different thing of just something, and then it finally goes back to being Goldfinger. It's just like, honestly, what have I listened to? What have I just been listening to? I hate the fact that we end Bondtober this year on such an awful sequence and a wasted opportunity. And this sequence was meant to show the history of Bond. You could have had so many fantastical things going on here. But honestly, I would just skip button, press X or A on your controller and just not watch this sequence. And that's everyone, it's the end of Bondtober this year. I hope you've had really great fun with it as well as I have, and looking forward to doing the next Bondtober next year.